have people gardened before? Seattle, okay, rain. Jersey, oh, the Garden State, right on. Where else?
Maryland.
Where at?
Maryland.
Really, Maryland? I was born in Fairfax, Virginia. Yeah, DC area. Right over here. Michigan, you'll like it down here. We have lots of Michigan, lots of Chicago, lots of folks from that part of the country. Chicago, lots of influence. Maine, come on, you Californians, you know we love you. There we go. You get all this bad rap, but you see that we're from everywhere. We're from everywhere. So everyone blames the Californians for, but nah, we love Californians. So my boy, we did a corporate stint up in Sacramento, Folsom, Roseville, boys born in Roseville, so if you know that area, just 100 miles. Basically east of San Francisco. My corporate office is in San Francisco, and I ran the Northern California thing. I set up as a kid out of college. I set up credit bureaus. So my job was go start businesses for other companies, start credit bureaus, track how you paid your bills, create a database, and then sell it back to banks and make money that way. Boring. So, and I love gardening, but then Northern California, it's the best gardening ever. You could throw anything. I could throw this cup out there and it would start to grow. It's just so nice. It ain't so here, so it's different. So we gotta be more exact. So gardening for newcomers. The goal of this class, this is kind of like 30,000 feet. We're gonna glide over and just give you the high points. We may go into details. I've left some room for some questions, interactions. With this big a group, I mean, there's like 40 or 50 of us. I don't know how much we're going to be able to interact. We'll see. I want to cover the highlights. Here's what I want to go over. Zones, soil, sun, veggies, herbs, critters. There's so many critters, we can't go over all of them. There's a whole class just for critters. Water irrigation, that's a big topic. It will create a lot of buzz. You'll just have to listen and believe. We'll go over that. There's a whole class on nothing but irrigation. Again, this is 30,000 feet. We can't go deep. We'll have to just go superficial. Planting, we got to go into that pretty deep on how to plant here in mountain soils, just to increase your game. Humidity, and then I got a book that I wrote last year. I'm going to email to you, so we'll get that out. I wrote a book on low maintenance landscape. It goes over irrigation, how to control weeds, and how to deal with rock lawns. It's kind of the basics of how to water, how to just be able to travel, not be a slave to your yard. There's a way to work with the environment, which is kind of what we're covering here. I think it'll go into multi-page details, a lot of photos. It's pretty good and it's all local. It's not something just downloaded from Google. It's actually, I wrote it for here, this zone. Now let's go over zones. Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, Baldwin, Prescott. I'd say all the way out to Cordes Junction. Once you come up Black Canyon City, that highway, you plateau, and you're up here at the higher elevation, God's country, we're all the same zone. Yeah, but Ken, I'm on I'm at 5,000 foot. Well, I'm at 5,400 foot. I hear all these footages, but I don't care. We're all the same, okay? We're all in this boat together. We are a zone 6. USDA says specifically, 6B is in boy. We flirt strongly with zone 7 though. You see a lot of zone 7 plants here. And I just got any gardeners out there getting your garden books. This just came in the mail. I don't know why I'm on their list. Southern Living, plant collection. I get some extra stuff just because I'm kind of a garden celebrity. They use me as a way to talk or promote. Or Ken, try that. See what's your USDA zones. You'll see this map with different colors. All that says is cold hardiness. That's all it's telling you. Will the plant go sub-zero? We need plants that can go to 0 degrees. That's zone 6, okay? Zone 7 is we need plants to go to 10 degrees. So depending on your elevation, what has more to do with your zone is, are you on a south-facing hill or are you on a north-facing? North's gonna be, you see where the cold is, where the snow is hanging out. That's a little bit colder. And in your neighborhood, no matter where it is, Prescott Valley, you think it's as flat as a pancake. It's not. Cold air settles in the dry washes. Hot air will warm. Warm air rises. And so the south-facing hill warms up faster. Your best gardens are going to be on the east side because it warms up very quickly and it rotates over. So I find my best plants are grown direct east and west. depending on what I plant. So those are kind of half-day sun. That's what that is. So first thing in the morning, then it gets a little break, or it's a break through the middle of the day, and then it warms up at the end of the day. That's just personal, what I've found works here at this elevation. So that's our zones, you gotta get that. We gotta go over frost dates. So on average, this is 100 years of data. Mother's Day is what the locals use as the last frost date. That's the first week in Saturday, or in May. So that Saturday in May, that's kind of our average. Now here's a funny thing about averages. It's never on Mother's Day. 50 of those years, it was middle of April was the last frost. The other 50 was middle of May. So, but the average is Mother's Day. Generally speaking, that's pretty close. Just if you're going to be tempted, trust me, the weather's going to get really nice. I mean, it's kind of nice now. We're lightly dressed. It's not like the Midwest, but it's really going to get nice in March. But we're not done with the cold yet. I mean, you're thinking it's going to be, you'll be tempted. You'll be in going, Ken, where are the tomatoes? I want them now. Give them. You'll be at the box stores going, they got them. Let's plant them. Don't do that to yourselves. Well, I'm going to give you all that dating. But just know that your frost, you're at high risk until the first part of May. Yeah, but Ken, I live in Prescott Valley. Okay, I think yours is May 5th instead of May 8th. Oh, I'm in Chino. I think you're May 11th. We're all basically, we used Mother's Day as the date. The first frost, when does it start to get cool? Usually we're using Halloween as the marker. So I think it's actually October 28th. Depending on which city you're in, but basically it's about Halloween. You're going to get that first cool night. Now, again, average. It could be middle of October. It could be, often it's middle of November. But on average, it's kind of that last week in October. Okay, so we got all the periphery, just kind of the core stuff done. You should know those dates. Soil. I don't know if you've dug lately, but we don't have soil. There is no topsoil. And any topsoil that you had, as soon as they broke ground, they took the backhoe and scraped off all that topsoil, put your footers in, put the driveway, got it going, and you have nothing in your soil. Literally, many of them, this is unique to the mountains of Arizona, many of you are gardening in dead soil. Literally, it's dirt. You might be able to get a shovel into it, you might not. But there's no microorganisms, there's no fungi, there's no worms. You won't find a single thing in that soil. It's dead. You're going to have to revitalize or put some new vigor back into the soil before it will actually start growing stuff. And here's the indication of I planted in dead soil. I put the boxwood in the ground 3 years ago, and it has not grown at all. The plant just doesn't take, it doesn't grow. It just sits there and looks at you, mocks you almost as a gardener. It's very frustrating. It's because the soil, there's no reason for that plant to grow into the soil. There's nothing there for them. A plant needs to see a soil. It's not just dirt. A plant wants to see living organisms. There's some symbiotic things that happen. I won't go into all the soil science, which I know, but just trust me, you're going to need to probably add some organics to your soil. That's mulches, manures, that kind of stuff. You're going to need to add some of that. As soon as you add some compost to that planting bed, the flower bed, the vegetables, the trees, well, whatever, as soon as you add some organics, all of a sudden things come, just like that. So birds will come in pecking around at it. You'll see worms show up. I don't know where they come from. They just magically show up. They just start happening. And so you're going to need to activate that soil. And you've not heard the word caliche until you move to here. Caliche, I think the Indian term is concrete in the soil. Not really. My Native American friends, I'm not offending you, but basically, it's a calcium layer that's as hard as bone. It's a chalky white layer. It can be anywhere from just an inch or two down to, I've seen it at almost a foot level. It's actually a band you'll see. If you see the road cuts, if you see where they've actually opened up the soil, you actually see this band of caliche going through. Now, it really is prevalent once you get up to the ranch, by hills, right out to the 69 corridor, it's really bad. That's where if we're gonna go out and plant for you out in that area, automatically the jackhammer goes with us because we want to fracture that up as if we encounter that. If you hit a real hard layer, you're going to have to punch through that because it literally, water will hit that band and will just stop, just pools. If you've got that underneath your planting hole, really when you dig that soil out, you're really digging a bathtub without a drain stop. I mean, it just plugged, it just sits there. So everything you plant will rot and die. Literally, you will have some holes. I've had some plants, there's some sections in my yard, I cannot grow things. I mean, I've planted 3 or 4 times, and just every time I plant, it dies. Because of that soil factor. It's not perking, so it's not draining. Some of you that are out in the, kind of away from the city sewer systems, you actually have alternate systems. You can't even, it doesn't even perk well enough to put a septic field in. You've got to actually go above ground, fancy, very expensive systems. Very, very common here because the soil doesn't perk. Put that on your radar. If you run into that layer, usually we'll take a jackhammer or digging bars and just try to poke a chimney, is what we call it. Just not the whole, entire hole, just a piece of it so the water can find a way to drain through that. Literally, until you hit the next layer of soil, you'll struggle with getting that plant to grow in that hole. Literally, some of those plants have given up planting here, and I just go right here, and it starts to grow. I don't know why. It's just the soil band was the fracture. Something happened where that soil drained there. If in doubt, here's the test. When you dig your hole, you sense that it might be difficult to plant, fill it up with water in the morning. If that water is still sitting there at the end of the day, you have a problem. So you're going to have to modify that hole some way before you get a tree or shrub or whatever. And that's why so often we use raised beds here. We have a lot of, probably more raised beds than you see in other parts of the country because of the soil factor. And we're on the mountain, especially in Prescott, we're on these mountains or the newer section of Chino Valley. Part is rock. The older parts, lush farmland, everything grows. The newer areas, rock pile, all the soil is swept down in the valleys, and you got nothing but caliche and rocks. So you'll just see some of this in your own gardens. You'll find a difference in your front yard or your backyard. At least I've found that. I've found a different kind of soil. I'm on a classic mountain landscape. So they dug out the hillside to put a 2-story house. The bottom layer, the basement's underneath the ground. The top layers kind of walks right into it. But I got beautiful views. But it really can be a challenge with planting. My backyard is the most difficult gardening I've ever done, ever. And I've gardened throughout Yavapai County, all of Yavapai County. And this is the most difficult. It's lush, it's beautiful. You'd come over and go, whoa, it's beautiful. But it's been the most difficult. I have killed more plants figuring out what will take and what won't. I can't grow manzanita. I love manzanita, that red bark, evergreen, beautiful bell-shaped flowers. Everything about it says, yeah, I love it. I've killed 5 in my backyard. It just won't grow. It's north side, it's heavy clay, and this is a drought-hardy plant. It'll take the cold. It's the sitting in this cold in March, snowy, it's wet, it just rots. So I've given up. Now for you, my friends, I'm going to give you the Ken's 2 strikes you're out theory. So if you kill one plant in a hole, try it again. Probably the advice I'll give you if I'm helping you, I'll try to get you to change your mind and switch up a different kind of plant. Just so we take that variable out. Was it the plant or was it the hole? We're trying to figure that out. But if you can, plant a different kind of plant. If the next one dies, cover it in rock and move on to the next. Just move 5 feet over, try a different space. And what you'll find will start to take for you. If it dies over there, if you go to raised beds, containers are a great way to go. So that hole, you've got something's there. The tricky ones are going to be Timber Ridge, out that White Spar area, and the closer you get to Granite Mountain. There, you get these tricky boulders you get underneath. You get this rock shelf that you don't even see. It's sitting, there's not caliche, it's just a big old granite boulder sitting there, and you go, oh, it's fine, I'm fine. You dig, and all of a sudden, you're having issues. And so it's the soil didn't perk because you didn't see the rock shelf, and it's just tricking you that way. So you have to play with it. We call this gardening. You wanna, it's okay. Also, I'm gonna give you permission to kill things. You don't, some of you folks go, oh, I've got brown thumbs, and you really talk to you all. And you analyze what, you killed one plant like 5 years ago, and now you think you got brown thumbs. You look at your yard, it's this beautiful, lush thing, but you killed only one plant. Only one out of all. You don't have brown thumbs. This is great. You're gonna make some mistakes, especially in the mountains. Because for you from the south, the garden state, I mean, you throw the chair out in the yard, it'll start to grow stuff. It's so easy. It doesn't take a gardener to grow in some areas, Southern California. So easy. You can blunder your way through. Be a blithering idiot and have a gardener. Here, you can't do that. You need to be, there's some error factor, but you need to be more exact or you're going to have more failures. And that's what we're doing today. That's what we want to do, is try to narrow down so you're making a few less mistakes. Okay? All right, how are we doing? The sun. Oh, so food and soil. Okay, we need to do both. Food. What you'll find here is, because we don't have topsoil, you'll have to fertilize more often. Okay? There is no naturally occurring food in your soil. You're totally, in fact, a lot of you have real granity soil, so that soil just kind of flushes right through, and you're left sterile. So you see a lot of plants. You walk through your neighborhood this afternoon, you'll see a lot of yellow plants. They aren't meant to be yellow. They're chlorotic. It's winter chlorosis. They're just starved. So you get this pale kind of yellow look to them. These nice evergreens, even a pinyon pine should have this beautiful long candle growth in spring. Coming up in another month or so, everything will start to activate. And they look thin and wispy, and they look like they're starved, because they are. They're starved. So you'll find you have to fertilize more often. Stay away from, can I say this out loud? Miracle-Gro? Stay away from that garbage. That stuff is the world's most expensive food, and it doesn't go very far. In fact, if you've got it in your yard, give it to a friend, have them use it so you're not frustrated. Okay? It doesn't work. The reason being liquids don't work here is because there's no food. And it just flushes right through the soil band, and just goes right out and goes away. And most of the food is just out of the plant doesn't even have time to pick it up. And so you want something that's slow release. Every time it waters, or you irrigate, rains or snows, just a little bit releases over a long period of time. That's your goal. So your synthetics, your petroleum-based product, your Scott stuff, if it's a slow release, that's going to be Osmocote. This was a big name for the synthetic fertilizers. We're not big into synthetics here. We're big into organics and natural stuff. And so we put together a food called all-purpose plant food. This is organic. This is cottonseed meal. This is heavy too. I put this together because so many people were blundering. We used to be the largest Scotts dealer in the state back, dating myself 20 years ago. And then they went to the box stores. I can't compete with them. So I became the largest Fertilome dealer, which is a big Texas-based company. And they wouldn't tweak the formula. They were doing all East Coast stuff. So I went, let's just add some sulfur to my fertilizer. Just give me a Southwest mix. I just want one. I can sell truckloads. Just bring it. They wouldn't do it because there's not enough of us here to bother with. They don't want to market. All that HGTV, Fine Garden magazine information, they're not talking to you. They're talking to Washington, D.C., up north to Boston, over to Chicago, maybe Southern California, maybe. That's where the bodies are. That's where the product, that's where the money, that's where the advertising, that's where, not the few people that are living in northern Arizona. And so I got frustrated, so I came up with a buddy of mine runs golf courses. He makes fertilizers for golf courses. He's in Casa Grande. We're having coffee, and we're going, hey, could you make something for me? And he came up with this. And so it's we've been tweaking this formula for probably 10 years now. It really works. Here's the reason that it works. Your soil is unique here in that your water is extremely high in pH. Very unusual for this part. There's a little bubble in the southwest where it's very high alkaline, high pH. Those of you that have pools and spas, you're always checking your pH because it's so important. It's really important for plants. Now, if you get your pH wrong in your hot tub, you sit there, you come out, your skin itches, kind of just you feel, I don't know, just things turn green really fast, or just everything. You got to get that pH right, or you struggle. The soil, it's even more important for plants, because you're dealing with living, breathing things that can't pop up out of the hot tub and take a shower and get all that stuff off. They're actually sitting there living in that space. So if you get that pH off, things happen. Here's what will happen. You'll start to garden, you had everything right, you got lots of compost was going, things are growing, and about 6 to 9 to maybe 12 months later, the leaves get smaller. It stops blooming. It's not blooming. My lilac was so beautiful last year. This year it didn't bloom. Why? Common theme. As you water, drip irrigation or with a hose, most of us should be using drip irrigation. That's a very efficient way to go. As you water, the soil becomes alkaline. That layer that you see build up in your sink or your toilet or that ring in the bathtub, that also builds up in the soil. And it starts to affect your plants. So you need to correct that. So we're always trying to correct the water is the issue. Your water is what's always going to raise the pH. The soil will naturally take on whatever your water pH is. If you're watering at all, it just naturally floats to what's the pH of the water? That's the pH of your soil. Bottom line. That's something you're not used to dealing with in other parts of the country. Most places you're hearing add lime to the soil because it sweetens the soil. Have you heard that? Lime sweetens the soil. Don't ever use lime in our soil. If you take high pH and add lime, you just sterilize your soil. Trust me, I've made that blunder. Don't do it to yourself because we're dealing with high pH. The other one you hear often, so many garden, if you're Googling this, it'll come up, half the pages will say add ash to your soil. Ash. Take the barbecue, take the fireplace, ash, add it to your soil. It will make everything grow. Don't ever do that to yourself. You'll kill your soil here. The reason being, most of the hilltops, Thumb Butte, we can see it from here, is an old volcano core. Most of the hilltops are old volcanoes throughout northern Arizona. All that ash that was around the core has settled throughout the soil. And so we have a lot of naturally occurring volcanic ash already naturally occurring in our soil. If you add more to your soil, you'll kill the soil. And ash is extremely alkaline. So we're always trying to do the opposite. We're always trying to push the pH down. We're always trying to make it more acidic, and it will never stay there. As soon as you start watering, it will start to rise back up. And it will finally, equilibrium will be whatever the pH of your water is, that's what will be in your soil. That's something to kind of watch. And so if you don't, the indication is going to be my tomato plant was doing so great, now it's just the fruits are becoming smaller, the roses lose their fragrance, your nice beautiful red tip photinias that should be rich green or now have a yellow, kind of a yellow hue to them. Those are all indications, not that it needs food, it needs to lower the pH. So this has got a lot of sulfur in it. The ingredients are acidic. Everything about it makes things more acidic, and that's why it works so well. It's granular. You spread it out there, and it will fertilize over about a 3-month period. Every time you water, just a little bit of food, it creates new life. Fertilize in the month of March, spring. As you start to see the first daffodils, forsythia, that kind of stuff, fertilize right then. So when you see spring, you'll know, you're gardeners. You know, oh, it feels like spring, or I want it to be spring. Fertilize that. Fertilize in the month of July. I would say end of June, first part of July. We have a monsoon pattern that happens in midsummer. So if you can put food on right before the rains come, usually locals, we kind of use Independence Day. That's kind of the marker as when the monsoons generally. It might be the end of July, but sometime in July, monsoon, the rains come. You could fertilize right then. All of a sudden, those crepe myrtles, roses sharons, all that summer blooming stuff just goes, whoa, becomes really bright colors. If not, you've been watering all spring, all that food you had on in spring goes away. And then all of a sudden the summer stuff doesn't bloom and it becomes more yellow. It's not just pH, it's fertilizing because there's no food naturally occurring in your soil. We're trying to lower the pH. Those two things we're trying to get balanced, okay? And then I fertilize in October when the fall color comes. Actually, personally, I fertilize right before I think the fall color is showing up because we're famous for our aspen colors, our golds. We're really anymore, we've planted so many maples locally, we're famous for our maple reds. So if I want to put for myself, I want to put my foods on to bring those fall colors out. I want mine to be the brightest pop of color in the neighborhood. Just because I fertilized, I brought the pH down, gave it a little bit of food, all of a sudden the colors really start to become crisp. If you don't do that, you'll go from green to pretty much maybe a gold to brown. Or what should be an orange color just turns a yellow. So you'll see there's definitely not the same kind of fall color. So 3 important feedings. In fact, Ken, maybe we can give them that book link, we could throw in the fertilizer, how to fertilize. And really what the fertilizer says, fertilize with this all-purpose plant food and soil sulfur in spring. Soil sulfur makes everything more acidic. It basically looks like little sulfur pellets. You spread it out there. I only put it on once a year. I buy the big bag. I get this size bag, and I'll sling it on the next couple of weeks. I'll start throwing all this stuff out there. As soon as my backyard, the thaw goes, as soon as that last bit of snow's gone, I'll fertilize everything with this food, and I'll sling this on. And I just take my hand spreader and just walk around the yard, and I just like fairy dust. I just sling it out there. I just pick it up, and I don't put it all right at the trunk. Put it out underneath the drip line. So about halfway out from the trunk to that outer branch, from halfway out this way, that's where most of your feeder roots are. Very fine, thin hairs. They're the ones that pick up the food and the water. If you bought that older house, so you're trying to fix it up, maybe even the yard's a little kind of overgrown, needs a gardener's touch. There's a lot of homes like that. The emitters, the dripping irrigation is set up right at the trunk, right at the base of the tree. It's probably ideal to now move those, put them further out to the drip line, maybe even add an emitter or two so we get a better balanced irrigation to it. But don't be tempted to throw your food right there just because the emitter's there. Put it out where the plants will get it. We don't care about your irrigation. Irrigation does not release plant food. Rain does. So we're looking for snow, or moisture. And when that happens, that's when the food's going to actually be released. Okay? So this in spring. In the summer, my staff is so good. In the summer, this is July feeding. I'll use the all-purpose plant food and this soil activator. This is a soil activator for you organic gardeners. Compost is so great. If you composted a pile of stuff, you've got stuff already for us? Wow, good job. I'll go over that in a minute. If you take compost and boil it down right to its lowest element, it's humic acid. Humic acid is like magic for soils. It doesn't fertilize the soil. It fertilizes the mycorrhizals, the organics, things that are living in the soil. Actually, it feeds the soil, not the plant. So when the plant sees all these organisms alive, and the soil goes, this is a great place. I'm going to grow here because look what's going on. This has got to be a great, I'm going to root out more. So it increases deeper roots, and it makes the food absorb better. Just a good combo. And summer, June is your hardest month to grow things here. June. You can get it to grow through June. In fact, if it just looks bad, just get it to live. Because the monsoons are coming. July 4th. You just want to get it to carry over. It's hot, it's dry, it's like 10% humidity, a prevailing southwest wind, unrelenting, never lets up, day and night, is trying to dry this plant out. And so then July comes, the monsoon, the clouds come, humidity goes from 10% to 19%. Woo! Really gets up there. We start to sweat, maybe. But the plants feel that. They go, oh, it's humid. It's not as sunny. I'm not sitting here vaporizing. And so you'll see them actually physically perk up. So you just want to give them a plant. You want to give them some food right then. With these two products, all of a sudden it'll take off. And we'll get that handout. If you give us your email, you'll have that handout to you. And in the fall, all I do is the all-purpose plant food. So probably the most important feeding of the year is fall. Because as plants go to bed, go to sleep, they actually absorb, they actually hibernate, kind of like bears and squirrels and stuff. They'll actually absorb that food and store it in their root structure. Okay, where am I at? I think we got food and soil. Sun. Sun is intense. You haven't seen sun until you've been out in the high elevations of Arizona, where it's low humidity, it's high elevation. You grew geraniums right out there in full sun. The plant says grows full sun. Look, the tag says. Here, it will grow and struggle in full sun. I find my geraniums, which I love growing. I'm a flower grower. I love flowers. My best geraniums in full shade to part sun, full apart. If I give them some break, I find the flowers stay on the flower longer. Just the bloom cycle is much, much longer if I give it some protection. In fact, my geraniums, I've got a big maple tree in the very front yard, south-facing. It gets morning sun, midday break, western sun. Everything I put there just grows like magic. I mean, it's sunny and bright, but it's got a little bit of protection for that midday. Really makes a difference. That's where I put a lot of my containers, raised beds, tiny lawns. It's pretty lush right there. So I'm taking advantage of that tree, the shade, the soil, and it's right at the front yard. And we like entertaining, so we want to show off. When you drive by, I own a garden center, people know us in town, we get drive-bys. It needs to look good. So, just not drive-by shooting, we drive-by visual looking. It has to look good. So it does look, it's pretty impressive, but low maintenance because of where we put it. So sun is going to be something, your tag, don't necessarily believe the national tag is put on the tree. Maybe verify or walk your neighbors, see where it's growing. Kind of put your gardener's eye to it. Go, oh look, there's a really nice specimen. Where's that at? You folks in the pine trees, let's say up Timber Ridge, up in the pine, a lot of pines, you're mainly shade. There you're going to struggle with the shade. It's actually easier to grow things in sun than in the shade. You need to look for your bright spots, because in between the trees, you'll find a few light zones. You're going to go, well, that's where I want to put my flower garden, my veggie gardens, or I want to grow that rose. For those of you in the older homes, let's say you planted some trees and some rose bushes, and all of a sudden, the roses are getting real long and leggy. They're starting to lay over because they're reaching for the sun. Roses need minimum 6 hours of sun. Well, that's what they used to get, but 10 years later, that tree's grown up, and all of a sudden, that rose, that flowering thing, whatever it is, a crepe myrtle, rose of Sharon, whatever, lilac, is not going to grow as well because it doesn't have enough sun to create the photosynthesis, to make the sugars, to create the flower, and so it just struggles. There it may need to be moved. Or some of you, if you're in an older home, it needs to be remodeled. I just talked to a gentleman, he bought his house from a 90-year-old couple. They live in Sun City. This is their second home, their summer home. They haven't been up here in about 3 years, because they just can't and they haven't taken care of the yard in 15 years. They just have not been able to physically to take care of it. It was kind of a second home, they didn't have a gardener, they just kind of let it go. He's got a lot of cleanup to do. So buy a good chainsaw, power it up, and just go at it, because you need to thin this out. This is out in Kingswood, so it's in the pine forest. It's a fire hazard. Some of you need to just remodel, but I don't think we remodel our landscape as often as we should. We remodel the bathroom more than we do the landscape. You need something fresh and vibrant each season in the yard. You need something that just goes, look, everything's young and alive and vibrant, like it's growing. These old, mangy, crusty roses with bark, this looks like it's going to scratch your face off. Maybe not the best look as you're coming up to the front door of your house. I think it's okay to kill some things. Now, I own a garden center, and plants don't have the same meaning for me, but I think maybe we love our plants too much. We're afraid to kill this half-dead houseplant. Now, poinsettia was meant to be thrown away January 1st. Not to stay around the office forever. It's not meant to do that. It's a seasonal plant. For $20, you have a fresh new one. Anyway, my take. I'll get off my soapbox. Breathe. Veggies and herbs. We grow vegetables and herbs Probably better than most folks because we're dry. We don't have the insects. We don't have June bugs. We don't have many issues. We don't have disease really. We don't have leaf spot because it's dry. If you're planting at the right season. Remember, Mother's Day, last frost, you're going to be tempted to plant tomatoes. I'm guaranteeing you, you're going to be tempted to plant squash, peppers in April. And I plant a few of them, just a few. I don't commit all my resources, but I have a radio show, I write garden columns, and it's bragging rights. I have to say, I just picked my first tomato off my vine. It was so good. How are you doing with your tomatoes? There's some competition as gardeners. We want to brag about the size of our zucchini or whatever. It's just, you want to get it in early so you get a start. If you're going to plant early, make sure you cover them. So we have frost cloth. I've always got sheets ready to go. I've got systems. I've got pop-up tents, kind of go over things. If you're going to plant early, don't do the entire yard, just a few, so you kind of get that gardener's garden-esque. You get your hands dirty and start. We are going to start planting potatoes by March 1. Onions, I think they come next week. Garlics, all that stuff is coming. Rhubarb, all that stuff is coming. We'll start in March. That's a cool season planting. So things that are leafy, or you're harvesting the flower, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, lettuce, those things you'll plant early, March and April. I call that early spring. And they do really, really well. Those things don't like our summer. They tend to bolt. So the flavor comes out better when the nights are cool on spinach and lettuce. Once they start to bolt, they get bitter. The flavor just goes away. So I try to rotate that out. I'll pull those things out. That's when I'll plant my squash. I love salsa gardens. So my big thing is tomatoes and peppers. The hotter the pepper, I love hot peppers. Jalapenos right off the plant. They're so delicious. My mouth's watering thinking about it right now. I love grilling peppers. I like everything about peppers and onions, tomatoes and salsa. Look at a guy out, chips and salsa, beer, and watching the sunset. It's all good. For you, it might be you love squash. That's your thing. Beans. Just know what your last frost date is. So anyway, on the website, you've got my card. It's got watersgardencenter.com. That is not a static billboard. That's a living, breathing garden encyclopedia. So I've got a blog on there that's posted every week. There's one or two things posted. This is a thing that's meant to be a local resource because there are no books written for here. They're mainly written for U of A as our Extension 8 University, Tucson. ASU's the big metropolitan area, and none of that information pertains to the mountains of Arizona. Otherwise, you're going to the East Coast, to your Chicago, where the colder zones are, you're going to the East Coast, and that stuff doesn't pertain to here. So this is there's a resource tip, there's a tips page, or button at the top, lots of handouts on that. So lots of anything you can think of, and there's a search bar at the top, you just put it on there, say javelina, or roses, whatever. Type that in there, it'll bring up every single thing that's related to that, and there'll be a lot of video, use that. It's all free, but I'm posting there constantly. Okay, so the tag, it says it grows to 10 feet tall on the national tag, not here. I call it about the 80% rule. 75, everything will be at pint-sized. It's not gonna grow as big as other areas where it's the perfect growing condition. Just general gut rule, it's going to grow a little slower here than you're used to. It's not going to get up to size. So always figure if it says it gets to 20 feet, always think about 80% lower, mid-teens. Okay, so it's going to be just a little bit smaller, width and height-wise. So when I'm designing or speccing for your gardens, I kind of go, oh no, that doesn't get 25 feet. It's going to get a little smaller. Okay, veggies and herbs, just the dates. Herbs, we are going to grow herbs and perennials like you've never grown before. We've got such nice, and most of them are perennial. They come back every year. So the rosemary, lavenders, thymes. I have an entire lawn of nothing but thyme. It's beautiful because I don't want to mow. I mow it once a year. I'm about to mow it, and then that's it. And I water it like I do my shrubs. So every 10 days or so I'll water it. And it's sub-irrigated. So it's just low maintenance. Low water, but it's green, it's crisp, even blooms in the summer, it's pretty. So herbs do really, really well. The one you'll be tempted to plant early, basil, #1 selling herb. I sell thousands of them. Don't plant that in the month of April. Wait. You'll do nothing but struggle. My friends, I don't want you struggling. I want you to succeed. We want you to get out of that rhythm of, dang it, I planted another basil and it melted and flopped over and did the same thing. That's because it doesn't like, if you even look at a basil with a cold thought, it dies. So basil loves the heat. It loves blistering hot. That's what it likes. So you want to wait to plant that one until May, for sure, for May. Critters. How many people have gophers? Or I know some of you did. Pocket gophers and mounds. You'll see a mound of dirt just kind of coming up. It's probably our #1 nemesis. No, probably javelina's #1. Gophers #2. Deer #3. Rabbits can be a problem depending on where you're at. Yeah. That's where you need more coyotes, bobcats, kind of thin out the rabbits. We are in a wildland interface. We're surrounded by natural forest. We're going to have a lot of animals, more than you're used to, just because we just have forest. That's part of the reason we moved here. So we have lots of pine and juniper forest. That brings in animals. So how to deal with those? Javelina, they're a pig, and actually not a pig, but they root up everything. Sorry, just helped a customer yesterday. They came in and rooted up her lawn. They haven't been in there for years. They came in and rooted up. Big chunks of lawn were coming out. Well, I'm sure they were after either the worms or the grubs. She's got some sort of protein source. They were digging that area out just to get the worms, and they left the chunks of lawn there. They weren't after eating the lawn. They were eating the insects that are in the lawn. Something was there. That's why they're there. And until you kill those off, they're going to keep coming back. So often I'll tell you, watch. If they're just rototilling the soil, kill off, probably you have grubs. That's a little white worm that grows in the soil. We have a lot of insects that live in the soil or in the trunks of trees, because that's where the moisture is. They don't just live out in the open because it's too dry and sunny. So you find there's a few more, the insects that you do have, they're usually sucking the sap out of the plants, or they're actually in the soil, one of those two. And so the javelina are after some of those. So watch out, watch what you're planting, especially if it's in the front yard and you've got heavy activity. You just took all your plant pallets you can grow, you came down to, you've got a handful that javelina will not leave alone. Herbs are one of those. They don't like herbs. So you'll find you have a lot of rosemaries and thymes, lavenders. We've got a whole list of nothing but javelina on the website under tips. Javelina resistant plants, we've got a whole list there. Generally speaking, most herds read the list. Not always, depends on the herd. So kind of watch that one. It's kind of, you have to play with it. Deer and rabbits are a little easier because they're a little pickier and they aren't just rooting up the soil and picking up. Sometimes a javelina will pick it up, throw it aside, and go, hey, this is fun, yeah. They're not eating the plant at all. They're just moving it aside. So they're after the soil stuff. The indication of deer is, it looks like your neighbors came in with pruners, put it exactly off, just like perfect, nipped right off, just shaped it perfectly. And go, oh, that's a deer. Well, how do you know? I know, it's a deer. So it's just kind of, they're the only ones that do that. And so there you can use sprays or kind of watch what you're planting. The only way to truly deal with animals, fence them out, physical barrier. Otherwise, I'm gonna make a fortune off of you. I got 2 kids in college I gotta get through yet. So I do want to make $1 or $2 to pay for college. But I'd rather just have you have success out in the yard. And the sprays work. I've got a good spray here. Did they bring that up for me? Repels all. This is the granular form. This is probably the best repellent I've found. It's organic, so it's safe with your dogs, the birds. This is a granular form. You sprinkle it out on the ground over the bed, and they'll get on their feet. Let's say squirrels or rabbits, and kind of go, oh, they start preening themselves, and they go, every time I go to your yard, I come back and my wife won't let me in the house anymore. They just smell bad. That's what this is meant to do. And they make the same exact thing in a liquid form as we start to see leaves form They'll come in after those tender new leaves. They're irresistible. They're just soft and they tasty. When you spray the leaf, it makes it taste bitter. So they're using rotten eggs and garlic and all kinds of stuff. This is probably the better. There's so many repellents. Everyone makes a repellent. None of them work 100%. You do have to reapply. As soon as the rain comes, this will last for about 3 to maybe 5 months, depends on the weather that we have, and then you have to reapply. Okay? And some of your neighbors are actually feeding the javelina. It should be strung up with shot. I don't know if you feed them. Don't feed the wildlife. It just draws them in, gets them used to human interaction. And if you've ever been chased by a large boar javelina, I have, it's the most frightening thing you will ever have. Okay? They are mean. It was razor sharp teeth. And I spooked him out in the orchard. He spooked me. And I just ran like a little girl. And it all was good. But they'll tear up dogs. They kind of go after stuff. So it's probably not good to bring them into the neighborhood. It's my take. Gophers, let's go over that because some people have already asked. Gotta just get it out of there. I've got a whole class on just nothing but animals. I can only touch on this so much. There's 3 ways to deal with a gopher. One is gas. Don't bother, it doesn't work. I do sell it, just don't bother. The systems underneath the ground are so massive that there's no way to suffocate them. And I think, after playing with it, what do you do when a room smells bad in your house? What do? Just close the door and leave. So I think they just backfill and clog up that hole and just quickly block that off. So I find it's not effective. Traps work really well. So your traditional gopher traps, those work. They are tedious. You do need to dig out, find the hole, plant it in there. And most of the tunnels that we find are exit tunnels. They're simply there to throw more dirt out. They aren't actual the run. It's very difficult. You'll find that you'll only hit maybe 50% of the time. That's if you're really good. And I'm a gopher master. I know how to get gopher. I've killed thousands, literally thousands, on a large farm. Got them off of about 8 acres. So you can get ahead of them, but it's war. You're gonna have to put your war hat on, go after them. Have a demarcation line going over there, live and be free. As soon as you come here, death and decay. So you gotta have a line where you're gonna go, this is mine, that's yours. What I finally came down to, in fact, I brought my tool. This is what I have. This is well worked. You see the paint's worn right off. It's called a gopher probe. You put bait inside this hopper, and where that mound is, you'll poke around the outside edge of that mound. You just take this poker deal, the tip, and just all of a sudden you feel it slip. When you hit the tunnel, you'll know because all of a sudden it just slips because there's no soil. It just kind of goes in that open tunnel. Then it's got a switch here. It's got a door at the bottom where it releases the bait off of this tip right underneath the ground, directly in the run. Highly, highly effective. And they don't have to deal with a dead carcass. Because when you start to get sick, what do? You go to bed, put yourself to bed. They kind of feel sick to their stomach. They crawl into their den, and you never see them again. And the baits we're using anymore, this is called zinc phosphides, or what we're using. This does not have the secondary kill, so they aren't as dangerous as they used to be. Strychnine, stay away from strychnine. Be careful of that one, because that does keep killing. The only baits we sell are zinc-based. I can tell you, an old rancher, this is kind of the inside scoop now. This is not, you won't find this in the book. But old rancher told me, Ken, if you want to really kill gophers, add some bee pollen to the mix. And I kind of do that. We go down to the Honey Man. I take wild honey, just help my allergies, really works. But I add a little bit of bee pollen, just a little bit. It makes it absolutely irresistible to gophers. They will search it out looking for this bait. They love bee pollen. So I add a little bit of that in my mix. I don't sell out bee pollen. I pay the honey man to do that. He's not paying me. It's just that's kind of the magic that I put into my own mix. Okay. That's gophers in a nutshell, just like that. So you can use traps. I've had up to 12 traps going. I'd set them twice a day. They don't hit the trap within the first 6 hours. They're not going to. Move on to the next one. I'll tend to clear out the entire area I want all the gophers at. I go and knock all the hills down. And every morning I go out and bait every new hill so I can see where the new activity is. Typical gopher run is about from me to you, about 10 by 10, with 3 to 4 dens. So they don't work the entire area all at once. They're just over here for a while, and they move over here. You just want to put that bait in or the trap in where they happen to be working. There's a question? Got it covered?
Just a question, bubblegum. I've heard bubblegum.
Yeah, so all these wives' tales, I've tried them all. Propane, I mean, I've tried all the crazy stuff. Yeah, if you put propane down and suffocate it, no, it doesn't. Bubblegum does not work. Oh, well, it's Wrigley's. Doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work. So you can swallow bubblegum. Why can't a gopher? So just kind of stick with traps, gas, bait. Also, these sonic deals. Oh wait, they make the sonic vibrator deals. I sell those down the store. I've actually got the nice one. Notice where the little bit better grade is. It's solar, not battery operated. Don't waste your time or money. So I get two. I get about half of them back as returns, which is fine. I get them back to the manufacturer. I don't want my friends to be frustrated. So they don't work. I think it has to do with the soil types. It's more rocky. The vibration doesn't happen to keep them. If it's more loamy, maybe it would work better. Maybe that's why half of them come back and the other half people like them. And the quantity you need to keep them away is going to be quite a bit. So I don't use that. We do have a gopher shield. This is actually a stainless steel cage. It's a basket that you plant your plant into. This does work. It's like a spring. It's like a spring-loaded stainless steel they can't nibble through. So there you can't, chicken wire is another one, you got to actually sew it together. So sometimes they can, depending on if it's a big male gopher, sometimes they can nibble through the chicken wire. So this one happens to be, there's different sizes down the store, but gopher shields are a way to actually create a physical barrier to keep them out of the root zone. But literally I've seen 8-year-old locust trees blow over in the wind because the gophers ate all of the roots. I've had a very established apple tree. I could stick my hand underneath it and come out the other side because the gophers had eaten all the roots off. It was ugly, so it's terrible. They don't leave them, don't think they're doing you a favor, they're doing you a disfavor, so yeah. Pack rats. We do have pack rats. Some of us have pack rats, especially in the shrub areas. So we're rock piles, I love rock piles. Pack rats, all rats deserve to die, not from the south. So actually all rodents. Gophers are just an underground rat, basically, when you look at them with ugly teeth. I've caught in the last couple months this winter, 9 pack rats, 3 voles, and a chipmunk. I want all rodents dead in my gardens. You're welcome to live out there. As soon as you enter my space, death and decay. It's war. I have 3 gopher traps. I've got a rat trap. Rat trap. There's a fancy rat trap in the store. It's black. It's easy to load. It's less likely to bite you. Highly effective. The thing I can tell you with pack rats, also peanut butter. I bait it with peanut butter. It's irresistible. They love peanut butter. Tie it down some way. Because I've had a big male. Some of the big rats, I mean, these are small cats. They're huge, especially the males. The rat trap didn't even kill it. It's still sitting there alive and starting to drag it off. So I've actually tied it to a piece of rebar, 2x4, tie it down so it doesn't get dragged off. Also, if you're out in a farm setting or bigger properties, coyotes love dead vermin. Bobcats, the barn cats have dragged off. I found my traps up in the barn. So you just see them, it helps you to spot it. So I've actually taken a 2x4 and spray painted it red so I can spot it. Oh, there it is. And go get it. So the vermin, they'll like to catch things like to eat rats and mice. So anyway, we can talk later on exact critters, but we have all those porcupines. You don't think we have porcupines. That's one, it's a nocturnal plant animal. Comes in, he parks his behind right at the base of your apple tree or your pear, and just starts stripping off the bark. Slowly. All night long, just eating the bark off your tree. You know, what's going on? And the bark keeps disappearing until finally it's girdled, the plant dies. That's only one thing does that, porcupines. Skunks, if you have little tiny conical shaped holes in your ground, There's only one thing that does that, that's skunks. They're smelling grubs or some sort of worms or something in your yard. They can smell those, so they take their little paws and dig them out and eat them, and they just kind of move them along. You see all these little tiny cone-shaped holes in your yard. Only one thing does that. So kind of learn, if you get into issues, come talk to us. We can probably help you out. But we want to move on, shall we? Water, let's go over water. Pull out your business card. This is not so you can see my pretty mug. You want to turn it on the opposite side. And if you're a plant person at my place, the number one question we get is, how do I water? We probably answer this even in winter, 2 or 3 times a day, each staff person. So we just put it on the back of their card. This is made to tape inside a garden journal or an irrigation box. It's made to be handy. You'll notice we broke up the guide into summer and winter. We're still in the winter watering. We do water 12 months out of the year. Okay? So the planting season or the growing season, you notice is October. Really, it's April through October is our growing season. That's when things are really going at it. Winter is November through March. So we got another month of winter. Right now, we're watering established plants. I broke it into established, new plants, lawns, flowers, vegetables, herbs. Okay, you got to take your garden as I'm getting you close. No one can tell you exactly how to water. But I can sure make it close where you're kind of blundering your way to correctness. This will get you really, really close, no matter the soil. Prescott Valley, Prescott, Chino Valley, so we're all the same. Water this guide, you're fine. The key is deep water and then let it breathe. We're not in Seattle. We're not in the Northwest where it's raining all the time. Plants up there, they've got drainage, things are different here. That heavy, heavy soil, if you load it up, all those open pockets, you load it up with water molecules, all of a sudden all you got is a soggy wet. You'll be prone to kill things from overwater, not underwater here. It's the opposite. You think it's hot out, it's 90 degrees, I'm hot, my plant's hot, I need to water more. No, you want to deep water and then let it breathe. So, my California folks, we got to get you over your water pattern. You guys are not, you need to get this right. Do not water every day for 10 minutes. Plants hate that. They really hate it. You're only watering the surface of the soil about this deep, then you're redoing it. So what you'll do is you're creating a soil, you're training your plants to be very shallow rooted. And what will happen is that fruit tree, a cherry or a pear or a peach, will load up with fruit and literally it'll just fall over because it just was not rooted deep enough. We'll go into cycles of drought. And so this plant was very shallow rooted, will all of a sudden be very stressed out because it was never watered at the beginning, it was never encouraged to root deep. So we want to encourage deep roots, not shallow roots. That's going to be once a week watering for established plants during the growing season, April through October. Very deep watering. So you notice drip irrigation, which is mainly how we water things. You're going to water that system 2 to 3 hours. Trees and shrubs. Trees and shrubs. It's 1 gallon per hour emitter. So you got to run it for an hour, just get 1 gallon on it. If you're watering your system, you leave it on for 10 minutes, how much water is that on the plant? You barely spit on it. The water only went down about this deep. It's only there so you can see it. It didn't actually hit the entire root zone. So you need to leave this system on a long time. And then don't run it again for a while. Let it breathe, because that wet soil does not dry out very quickly either. So you want to encourage deep roots. Trust me on this. It really, really plays out for you. Yeah.
Is that the case also with native plants?
Native plants would be a little bit different. Now, if you're planting native plants, yes, it would be the same. If you've got natives sitting there out in the yard, there's different philosophies on that. I don't think we should be putting natives on drip systems. I like to water mine either by, it's going to pick up water from my plantings I have around it, or I'll take a soaker hose and just once a month I might water it. Really natives, really what we're talking about are junipers and pines, ponderosas and piñons. Really those are the biggies. There I would say water once a month, April, May, and June. That's it. Because we get moisture every other month. April, May, and June, it's dry, it's windy, it's just crusty, and that's when the plants are pushing on new foliage. They get that new candle growth. That's when they're most sensitive. Add water then monsoons come July, nature will take care of it. Natives cannot go by themselves though in your yard. They could before you built your house. Roadways, change the water course. You've altered their environment just by being there. They can no longer go by themselves. They're going to need some assist, but not much. The mistake I find people make is they'll start watering this thing like their other ornamental landscapes, and then they overwater things. So some of the plants will not live. If you got a new house, you severed the root system by putting your driveway and entrance in, the tractors are compressing the soil around under the roots. Those plants take about 2 years to die. It just takes 2 years. It's a long, sorrowful, just painful to watch death because the roots have just been compacted and cut off. But if it's over 2 years, usually you can get them to nurse back and you bring them back to health. Let's go over while we're doing natives. There's a couple things that you want to watch for your natives. Some of you bought your property because that beautiful pinyon pine in the front yard that's just got hundreds of years old, beautiful junipers that have been limbed up and trimmed and made character. Ponderosa pines that are just, you can hear the wind going through them, it's just magical. If you were to lose one of those key pines, those key trees, they're irreplaceable. They're worth thousands. You cannot replace those in your lifetime. So you really want to take care of those. There are certain things that will go after. One, let's go over pinyon pines. Pinions. So the shorter needled pine, we have a scale that goes after pinyon pine scale. In fact, you'll hear, if you've got pinyon pines, you're in that neighborhood, you'll hear people, the whole neighborhood will go buzz. Oh, the pinyon pine scale. They're out, the scale are out. You need to treat for the scale, the scale, the scale. It's already starting to happen. They'll typically come out sometime the end of March, April. They'll hit a crawler stage. So scale, you'll see a needle. If you see a little black dot on the needle, that is a scale. There's only one thing that will do that, scale. And so if you've got little black dots on the needle, take a close-up look. You won't see an actual bug because it's scaled over, but it's underneath that black, tiny, tiny dot. She's sucking the life out of that limb. So literally a scale-infested pine tree, I could drive down a neighborhood and get scales. I can spot a heartbeat because the plant should look tropical and lush, full, thick, and rich colored. It shouldn't be wispy and barky and thin. And only the tips have got needles on it. It should be thick and lush. There, fertilize it, month of March, and add plant protector at the base. It's a product we came up, I designed this one just for us because scale is such a problem, bark beetle. That's what we use this for. You mix it up in a watering can, pour it right at the base, the plant absorbs it, goes underneath the cambium layer, the bark, the live tissue underneath the bark, goes up and it taints the entire structure so that when that scale pokes a hole and starts sucking the life out of it, it will taint, it'll kill it. So one application a year does it for the year. You can do this yourself. This is so easy. So I would do it especially if I have a character tree. I'm not one into taking on the entire forest, but there's some, if you were to lose that tree, it would be felt. The little guys, okay, they'll grow, they'll be fine. But the big monsters, you got to take care of those. They're the ones that are more sensitive. This also works for bark beetle, or Ips beetle, or flathead borer. Those are the ones that go after the ponderosas. So if you look at a ponderosa bark, if you see a pinhole in the bark, that's the exit tunnel of that particular bug. If you see that, you are at risk. They are burrowing, they burrow in or out underneath the bark, and then they eat the cambium, that soft live tissue underneath the bark. That's where the sugars are. It eats that till it finally girdles the tree. The tops of the tree dies out, and it finally just dies. It's a slow process, takes a couple of years, but if you put this on those pines, right at the base, it'll absorb that, goes up the cambium layer that they're eating, taints them, kills them. Okay, so flathead borer is a little bit bigger tunnel. They kind of come in afterwards, kind of finish things off. That's a product you use to take care of that. Anyway, we'll show you how to use that. Not all of you are in that pine area, but if that's of interest, we can show you how to use that. Your month to put that on, March. So you're just a couple, 2-3 weeks early. Usually you put it on in spring. For myself, I help my neighbors, because we've got a neighbor down below, a neighbor beside. The scale, we're just wiping them out. They weren't smart enough to know what was going on. So I just go, I'll just take care of that for you. You fertilize them, I'll help you. I pour this, when I'm doing mine, I just do theirs, because I don't want to see their rooftop. I don't want to see their bedroom. This is a nice screening plant, so I just go, I want this to be there. Let me help you keep it there. And I brought them back to life, basically. It takes about 2-3 years. Now they're lush, they're full, and they're healthy. There is a line in the sand where once that plant crosses, they cannot be brought back. So you'll know, because in summer, they'll just all of a sudden collapse. Like one day it'll look beautiful, then upon the way the conifers die, they died like months ago, but then the dry summer wind comes and they just defoliate. Within a week, they go from green to no foliage, like that. The date with them. Anyway, there's just a line, but it's worth trying, okay? Natives, a lot of natives. Planting, let's go over planting. How are we doing on time? Yeah, I want to wrap this up. Okay, planting, let's take this beautiful camellia. Nice shade, this is the only hardy camellia that will grow up here. All others are they are not the right zone. The winter will kill them off. Nice evergreen, loves the shade, and it blooms like this. It's the first thing to bloom. First thing to do, it's actually been in bloom for a while. I've grown entire hedgerows of this. It is spectacular. I've grown it in deer and elk country. And the animals did not eat it. So javelina, I think it's safe for that. When you're planting, I brought this one just because it's a 5-gallon bucket. Number one seller for us, at least. Number one size. When you're planting, you're only digging the hole as deep as the bucket. Don't go down to China. This is hard for you guys that have maybe even own equipment. I've seen guys up to here in holes with, what are you doing down there? Get out of there. You don't want a bunch of loose soil underneath the root planting hole. You want it to be compacted. Roots do not go down here. We don't have tap roots here. There's nothing down there for them. It's nothing but rock and caliche. There's no water. There's nothing there. They're not going to go down there. Don't dig down there. Roots go sideways. So they're crawling just underneath, maybe down to 3 feet at most. Even big natives we've dug up, the roots are only 18, 24 inches deep. And then they go sideways. Many of them have tap roots. I call it the hockey stick. It goes down about a foot, foot and a half, turns, and starts running this way. So your natives, literally, they can have 100 feet away. They've got roots over there. Underneath, they're taking advantage of our natural rain and the food that's there. There's no food down deep. It's all very shallow. We're after where the food and the water is. If you know that's how plants are going to naturally grow here, let's encourage them to grow that way. And so we want to add a bucket on either side. So you're going to go about, this one's going to be about 3 feet round by about a foot deep, saucer shaped. That's easy to dig a hole that big. Anyone can dig a hole that big. It's hard to go deep. It's easy to go wide. Now, some of you are in such terrible soil, you're going to dig a hole, and all you got is debris and rocks. I found construction debris, so you'll find the contractor to save a couple bucks, buried the trash. Now it's in your yard. You didn't even know it until you bricks and chunks of stuff. Get all that stuff out of there. Old roots. You want to screen down to about a golf ball size or smaller. Anything larger than that can't hold any water molecules. There's no organics to it. You just want to get that out of there. Okay? So screen it. Now, I mentioned you do want to add some organics. This is unique to the mountains. Again, your soil is dead. So you want to try to activate that soil so the plant, so we start to attract the mycorrhizals, the living organisms in the soil and encourage them to grow. You do that by adding compost or mulch. So we make a product called Water's Premium Mulch. We harvest this out of an old sawmill over in Taylor, Arizona. It's been sitting there for decades. We screen it down real fine. It's compost. If you're composters, use compost. Do not use manure. This is a temptation for you folks out the Williamson Valley, Chino folk. We're in horse country. The first thing you do after you get your new horse, Daisy, you're home. is you go inside, break out a Sharpie, and write a sign, put it in the front yard that says, free manure. Please pick it up, because this horse just, don't be tempted to add manure to your planting hole. It's too hot. It'll burn the new roots. Also, be careful of adding too much raw manure to your flower beds, vegetable beds, because manure piles attract things. Mainly this huge grub. There's a 3, 4, 5 inch, looks like a alien life form has landed. Now wants to suck your jugular. It's a huge white worm that loves manure piles. And then more customers add some of that into their soil. Make sure it's well composted before you add it into your soil, or you'll have issues. Just trust me. Also, horses don't digest anything. Whatever goes in comes out. And so seed, you'll get straw, you'll get hay, you'll get alfalfa, you'll get Bermuda. Whatever they've been eating, that's what you're going to grow that into your gardens as well. Big mistake. Make sure it's well composted when you're using that. Just because we're in horse country, it's going to be the case. So add some organics. I say about 25%, or 1 shovel's full, for 1 shovel of mulch for every 3 shovels of native soil. You want to use the natives. It's got to get used to that eventually. We just want to inject some more organics into that soil, so we really ignite the living organisms, and we keep that soil from compressing right back to where it was before you started digging. You water it twice, it goes right back to that heavy clay soil. So when you put some organics, it keeps the soil fluffy. Also, for you folks out in that granity areas, your water just goes right through. The organics help to hold moisture around the root ball. So it depends on your soil type, okay? Then also, you're gonna want to add some of this all-purpose plant food. Add some, while you're planting, add some of this. So some folks say add it in. I'm the lazy gardener. I'm the laziest gardener you'll ever find. I like shortcuts. I like products I put on once that last a long time. I just plant, I blend my mulch, backfill around my root ball, pack it down, and I'll sprinkle some of this on top. That's what I do. Some folks will go, well, I want to blend it into my soil mulch. That's fine. I like to take an extra step. Some of you gardeners like to garden. Take the extra work and do it. I'm just chucking it going. So I'll just sprinkle it on top, water it in. Now, before I do water it in, they bring some up root grow. I do put root and grow. This is a rooting hormone. Then I'll water in. Usually I'll have this before I even start. I'll fix up my 2-gallon watering can with some water.